So just quickly to introduce, Satya is the founder and managing director of Sri Shakti Alternative Energy. He's also, as Bursa India, Sri Shakti Alternative Energy is a partner, a content partner of ours in this trade mission that we're organizing. Satya has experience working with a variety of stakeholders, including international organizations like UNICEF, ADB, IFC, and has ample experience in the alternative energy market in India. So yeah, Satya, thanks very much again for joining us. I very much look forward to your presentation as well. And if all goes well, you should now be able to receive the role of presenter and take over.
Thank you, Burha.
Thanks very much, Satya.
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, we don't currently see your screen, Satya. I'm not sure if...
Okay, sure, that's good.
Okay, well, let me just do that again. Sorry, Satya.
Yeah.
Apologies for the technical difficulties.
All right. So, do you see my screen now?
No, we.
Oh wait, there is now.
Yes, now we see your screen. Thanks very much, Satya.
Sure.
And again, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Americas. Good afternoon, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and good evening, India. I hope our solar friends in Southeast Asia, Far East, and Australia are sleeping and will watch the recording tomorrow. Thanks, Borja and SolarPlaza, for inviting me to speak at this webinar that is a precursor to the Solar Trade Mission to India in October. We hope to see all of you in the distinguished audience here at SolarPlaza in October, because I'm sure you will join the Solar Trade Mission after we finish this fantastic webinar. I'm going to start my presentation by asking two big questions, and I bet that you will be glad that I'll answer those myself. So the big questions are, India will develop 100 gigawatts of solar by 2022. This is the Prime Minister and the government's target. Can India do it? And our Power Minister, Piyush Goyal, says, I want to kill 10 birds with one stone. Can Piyush Goyal do it? When you think solar, you think Germany. Germany is the top solar PV capacity, more than 38 gigawatts by end of 2014. And where is India compared to Germany? This year, China will definitely overtake Germany in terms of installed capacity because they're adding more than 10 gigawatts, but India is a long way behind. So how do you beat the leaders? You can't beat the Germans in football even if India launches a national mission to win the World Cup championship. Or it may take a very, very long time. But for solar, we already have a national mission and some bold imagination. I say imagination is more important than knowledge because knowledge is limited, whereas imagination encircles the world or even the expanding universe. So Germany versus India, yes. Rajasthan is equivalent to Germany in terms of land area and receives more than 50% of the 150 times the 150% of the solar radiation of Germany. So I think there's a potential for Rajasthan alone to do as much as Germany or more. So I'm going to substantiate this not just by imagination or big audacious goals of political leaders. So let's look at the International Energy Agency's Solar Roadmap 2014. In 2010, IEA made a roadmap for solar PV, which was 210 gigawatts of cumulative capacity by 2020, which is being achieved 5 years earlier in this year itself. And the capacity for 2020 has now been revised because IEA made a new solar roadmap in 2014 because the target is being achieved ahead of time. And this capacity is 420 gigawatts, double of what was foreseen in the 2010 roadmap. And IEA in 2014 has forecasted 142 gigawatts by 2030 and 575 gigawatts by 2050 for India in a high renewable scenario. I'll explain what it is later. So India's new target of 100 gigawatts under National Solar Mission can be seen against this background. Now I will quickly run through some slides to establish the authenticity of these figures. So you know that solar PV market grew 49% year on year on average since 2003. The maximum growth in PV markets has taken place after the global financial crisis in 2008, the collapse of Lehman Brothers, and when commodity prices and yes, oil prices were rather low. Annual capacity additions have gone up from 7 gigawatts in 2009 to 37 gigawatts in 2013. Total installed capacity has gone up from 23 gigawatts by 2009 to 135 gigawatts in 2013 to 37 gigawatts in 2013. So, you know, we're going to cross 200 gigawatts in 2015. So, you know, this is the global electricity mix in 2015. And the three scenarios that IEA has projected. This is the 6DS, which is 6-degree rise, business as usual case, 60-degree rise in global temperatures. That's the second bar, and 2 degrees rise in global temperature. And the last one, high renewable energy scenario, is we do better than, we stay under 2 degrees rise in average global temperatures. So I think those of us in this group who will still be around in 2050 should hope that average global temperatures do not exceed more than 2 degrees. There is a 2DS scenario, which means lower thermal power. The black is the thermal power, and you see here it's hardly there. The high renewable scenario may very well happen because of resource constraints and price of coal. And in this scenario, solar and wind provide 38% and PV provides 16% of the global power. So you see, you know, in this high renewable scenario, India will have 22% of its power coming from solar PV, some from solar CSP. I guess the teething problems and all that will be solved by then. And you see the black bars here is thermal power. It may not be giving nightmares to coal-based utilities just as yet, but you know, this is one possible scenario. So the IEA solar roadmap, yeah, this is what the figures I gave earlier, and this was made in 2014 before the government in India announced the target for 100 gigawatts by 2022, 142 gigawatts by 2030, and 250 gigawatts by 575 gigawatts by 2050. And you see the corresponding figures for China and the world and all that. Now, this is based on a very sophisticated model called the Markle model, where you know this model uses cost optimization to identify least cost mixes of energy technologies and fuels to meet energy demand, given the availability constraint of coal, wind, natural resources. So I think you know this is a very sound logic behind these figures. So let's look at the new Indian roadmap on this background. India has issued a solar potential map for 748 gigawatts in various states. using just 3% of the base land in the country. On that assumption, the solar potential has been worked out to 748 gigawatts, and I think somewhere like about 20% of the rooftop space, both together adding up to 748. You can see the details state-wise. So, after the new policy, the new government has been there just about a year, and then, I think things have taken some time for the policies to take shape and all that, but I'm actually very glad to see that the current solar pipeline in India has already cost 10,000 megawatts, and this is not complete by any means, and I've listed it by Solar Energy Corporation, NTPC, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, different. So I think this is very encouraging, and then it's good to see that about 60% of it is from the states and 40% from the center. And by end of 2015, this could very well be 15 gigawatts, which the government is targeting. Well then, what about financing and the cost of solar power and the feed-in tariff? Let's look at that quickly. So I'm going to look at some of these project costs, PLFs, interest costs. So these are the PPA tariffs in Andhra Pradesh, which were signed about a few months ago. 500 megawatts has been signed up. You can see these are levelized tariffs for 25 years. The lowest was bid by First Solar, then Acme and various other companies. So this is not the state with the best solar potential in India. So let me take you through some financial analysis we did for a 50 megawatt project. The cost per megawatt is 6 crores or 60 million rupees, say about slightly less than $1 million per megawatt. And a PLF of 19.5% is very easily attainable in Rajasthan. And the tariff I've assumed is 6 rupees. Believe me, as we speak, people, there is already more than 500 megawatts bidding issued by NTPC for Rajasthan, and I think people are thinking of going below 6 rupees for while bidding for those projects. And at these, and I've assumed interest of 12.5% on term loan, debt equity ratio of 70-30, and you reach a equity IRR. With these parameters, you can achieve an equity IRR of more than 15%. So, I mean, it's possible to do debt at lower than 12.5, and project costs could be lower, and maybe the PLF can be higher. So, and if you can manage 80% debt, these figures, the equity IRR will improve dramatically. So, what is the impact of interest cost on the levelized cost of energy in PV systems? At 9%, over half of this tariff that you earn will go for meeting your interest cost. And in India, we are at 12%. That's pretty steep. So, I think most of the revenue is going for servicing the interest. So that's very important, to bring down the interest costs, and that's where many of the efforts of the government are focused upon. So quickly, let me summarize the steps taken by MNRE and the government. NTPC takes on a target of 25 gigawatts. NTPC currently has over 33,000 megawatts of operating thermal power. NTPC will develop 10 gigawatts on its own and procure 15 gigawatts through EPC route and tariff-based bidding. And Solar Energy Corporation is doing its own bidding for 2,000 megawatts or 3,000 megawatts under the viability gap funding, and it's also developing 25 gigawatts of solar park capacity. SECI has been promoted by government to implement the National Solar Mission targets. With all these, you also see after the new government came, the cess on coal has doubled. It adds to the kitty of the National Clean Energy Fund. As Jasmeet said, RPO is being increased from 3% to 20%, 10% by 2022. Make in India has been launched. Trina Solar, Sun Edison, JA Solar are firm plans for manufacturing in India. Investing in renewable energy is considered as a corporate social responsibility, which is mandatory for profit-making companies as per the new Companies Act in India. And then, there are a lot of things that the government has is still thinking, doing, and then already introduced, which are green bonds to raise money abroad at a lower interest rate, and tax-free bonds from within the country. I think IRIDA is going to raise about 2 billion rupees under that, and then dollar-denominated PPAs and other measures to lower interest costs. I think these are all evolving. I'm sure all of these will contribute to achieving the targets. So, are you still not convinced? If you're not convinced, I will just conclude with this last slide. And then, some more imagination, put some imagination to work. Well, if you think that, the targets are too aggressive, well, presently we are going through a bidding route. If the time consumed by competitive bidding is avoided through PPAs at a predetermined feed-in tariff, with whatever is coming out through this price discovery, yeah, that can hasten the process quite a lot, because today the bidding process takes about 6 months. And then there is this agricultural water pumping market in India, where the connected load is more than 100,000 megawatts. So, we don't have to copy solar rooftops as in Germany and Japan. And many people say that 40 gigawatt rooftop target may be difficult to achieve in India. It could be rooftops, if not, it can be the agricultural water pumping market. Out of this 100,000 megawatt, which is in rural areas that are far away from generating stations, some of them can go partly off-grid and partly served through distributed generation at feeder level. And I think India has to fix this problem of agriculture, power consumption, which constitutes almost 1/3 of the total power consumption in India, and this market is growing every year. And I think if we fix this problem, then you reduce your transmission and distribution losses, and taking some of it off grid will really help reduce the distribution companies' losses. And then, apart from agricultural water pumping, we can also use solar charging for electric vehicles with rooftop feed-in tariffs, and it is cheaper than gas, petrol, or diesel by nearly 80%. A study done by our company in Rajasthan reveals a potential of 20,000 megawatts of solar to displace just 5% of gas or petrol used for cars and two-wheelers in only Rajasthan. Now, this 20,000 megawatt also assumes that 50% of the grid, 50% of the power used for charging EVs comes from grid and 50% comes from solar. Now, if you extrapolate to all India, there is, that's a lot of potential which we are not even talking about today. And it's a good reason to rely on solar, because, after all, India's appetite for gold imports, everybody knows. And oil is also the other main culprit for our balance of payments problems. 50% of the forex earned through exports by India goes for importing oil, and India imports 80% of its oil requirements. That's a great reason to rely on solar. And Prime Minister Modi already knows about using solar for charging EVs. Earlier this year, Gujarat introduced a pilot project for solar charging electric shuttle buses in the state secretariat, a project conceived when PM Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. India also has a national electric mobility mission that is being revamped. I'm sure with all this, India can do not just 100 gigawatts but the 575 gigawatts projected by IEA by 2050. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Satya. It was very interesting and very optimistic, I think, look at the market. And I think that, yeah, it's very interesting to also see how you're looking in more of just, more long-term than just thinking about the 2022 goal and what the opportunities are outside of what's already being discussed. One of the questions that we got was related to, the role of renewable energy certificates in India. What is the current role of renewable energy certificates, and do you see that also being a mechanism that could benefit solar?
Yeah, definitely. The market for RECs is subdued right now because the RPOs on the discoms are not being enforced by the regulators. Many of the private utilities and open access consumers who are also the obligated entities, they are buying. But there is also a problem with the rates specified for the REC certificates, which were like artificially high. So I think when the rates are corrected and then RPOs are enforced, which are the amendments being made to the Electricity Act and the National Tariff Policy, once these are done, I think you will see the REC market becoming more vibrant.
Okay, interesting. Thanks very much for that. We do also have another poll, and before that, I asked the poll to the entire group. I wanted to ask you. So you spoke of one of the questions that you asked initially was about Minister Piyush Goyal's ability to kill 10 birds with one stone. Could you just very quickly summarize for us again what that means? Killing 10 birds with one stone. What is he referring to?
Yeah, I think well, he says MNRE, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. India was one of the first countries, or the first country, to have a separate ministry for renewable energy. It's a 32-year-old ministry, and we have done 3 or about 4 gigawatts so far. And I think what he wants to do is do all these things. Now this ministry comes under Piyush Goyal as Minister of Power. It is aligned with Ministry of Power. Earlier, it was an independent ministry. So that is a great thing. I think that is what the National Solar Mission has done, and the new government, brought it under one minister. So that gives a great alignment, and you see all the things which are being done now. NTPC taking this big target, and then banks issuing, green bonds and tax-free bonds and all that. This great alignment is coming through that. And then, the dollar-denominated PPAs. So, with all these, I mean, these are all the things. This is what, Piyush Goyal says that, I think we can't remain at 3-4 gigawatt or 20 gigawatts, now. We need to look beyond for meeting our energy requirements. And this growth is not going to come through thermal or hydro. Hydro projects are delayed because of environmental reasons, and coal projects are already embroiled in controversy because ultra mega power projects, their coal price has gone up, imported coal price has gone up, and they're asking for a higher tariff, which the regulator has allowed, which the states are refusing to pay. So there are all kinds of problems, and so I think the biggest difference we see in the last year or so is everybody in the power sector in India is betting on solar now, which was not the case 5 years ago. I mean, it was just like wait and see or something, solar was also ran. Now solar has become mainstream. It's no longer hydro or thermal. Solar is the main thing. So I think this is what, the power minister with all these schemes and all that, when he says that I want to kill 10 birds with one stone, dollar-denominated PPAs, interest subvention or targets. I think the greatest thing Prime Minister Modi and Piyush Goyal have done is announce this 100 gigawatt target. This is a rallying cry, and so many things which were not there before, so many people who were not there involved before, Indian bankers, Indian developers, they're all coming on board. And it's just started happening, and I'm sure our friends, our international developers, bankers, and all are also going to be part of your trade mission. And I think everybody will contribute to this growth.
Excellent. Thanks very much for your answer, Satya. So with that, I would like to ask the question to the group. So the poll we would like to ask you is, how likely is it that this announcement of killing 10 birds with one stone will actually happen? You can feel free, as I'm speaking, to fill in your answers, but essentially, we want to gauge how likely people think it is that the Indian government will be able to introduce some of these policies that could be able to favor foreign investors and developers amongst others, and just favor the solar industry in general. So yes, we'll just give it 2 more seconds to that. The answers are all coming in right now, and we're getting some pretty interesting results here. Yeah, and I think that's just about everybody. So yes, we'd like to show the results and let's see what people think. How likely is it? So, okay, 48% of you have said that it's likely. Only 8% said very likely, 32% unlikely, and there's still some undecided. But so I think there's a pretty even spread there, with a bit of a more of a lean towards the likely. I personally think that the progress that's already been made in the past couple of months is quite remarkable, and I do see a lot of steps being taken. So yeah, and actually maybe I can also bring the question also back to Jasmeet to comment on that as well. Jasmeet, how likely do you think that these policies will be implemented?
So I think how I would put it is that there's this 100 gigawatt target, which is a rallying point for everyone. But how I would look at it is that yes, there is this 100 gigawatt target, and the government is doing all those things. I would place my bets on the market fundamentals, which are very strong by themselves, and not completely focus on 100 gigawatts as a number. Just looking at the different options that India has to grow its energy basket, and looking at the kind of irradiation we get, and the kind of support for solar in the country, both political as well as public. And so I think just looking at the fundamentals of solar, I would place my bets on that more than just policy announcements and targets.
Thanks very much, Jasmeet. No, I think that's. I think you're right, and I've read also in some of your reports, and I think a lot of the experts in the market are currently, I think, moving beyond just the constant question of is this 100 gigawatt goal reachable, and how much will be installed, but rather to focus, like you said, very much more on the opportunities, and really start with project development. And again, there's a lot of still a lot of pending policy decisions, I think, that are going to shape how the market is going to grow. But again, I mean, from our side, SolarPlaza, we're extremely confident in the market, like you said, and I think also Satya said, the landscape has changed so much since our last event, and we're really starting to see a lot of new players coming in, and both nationally and internationally. So yeah, no, I think that it's quite an interesting opportunity here for new players into the market. Yeah, specifically on, and I know that I kind of asked, but maybe I wanted to ask this question to Satya. In terms of dollar-denominated bidding, how likely do you think that this will actually happen? I know that this is on a lot of foreign investors' minds. A lot of investors are waiting on this potentially very interesting mechanism to attract foreign investment. How likely do you think, Satya, that this will actually happen?
This is almost a done deal. I think the minister is committed to it. And today there was yesterday there was an article in Financial Times London. Saying India courts solar investors with dollar contract plans, and gives a very interesting write-up about this dollar-denominated PPA. So it's for sure. And then there is another article quoting the ADB president, who was in Delhi, saying that ADB will increase lending to India by 50% to $12 billion by 2018. I mean, India is going to get a big chunk of the additional expanded lending capacity of ADB. And I think also India is set to grow at a higher GDP is going to grow at a higher rate than China this year. And there's another article about tax-free bonds. I mean, people who invest in these bonds in India, the interest is not taxed. So this is from quoting Director of Finance of IRIDA saying that IRIDA made a request to raise about 20 billion rupees. So I think these are all very positive things, and I think tax-free bonds are also going to be issued by IRIDA, Power Finance Corporation, Rural Electrification Corporation. I think all these are happening. This is what we didn't see earlier. The banks were not on board completely. The power ministry was not on board, maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Now they're all on board. So I think they're all on the solar bandwagon. So I think the dollar-denominated PPAs will definitely happen.
Excellent. No, I think again a lot of people are waiting on this, so it's very good to hear that you're so positive on this. One last closing question for Jasmeet, because I know that that's always on a lot of investors' minds. We really want to, or investors really want to understand the risks involved, and so Jasmeet, what would you say are some of the major challenges that still exist that need addressing in the Indian market that could sort of stop foreign investors from wanting to enter the market?
So I'll break it down into two parts. One are the market level risks, and one is then project level risks. So obviously market level risks, I think, are primarily would be focused around what's the appetite for solar power overall by the discoms and how much would they be willing to buy. Again, within this there are two perspectives. One is that a lot of these discoms are in a poor financial health. They're even hesitant to buy conventional power in some cases because they're not profit making and they don't really want to expand business in that sense. So they just their willingness to buy all this solar power is a questionable in the sense that will it really happen? So that's the kind of market level risk. But if you look at it from another perspective, if they do buy 10% of their power, which is say 20% more expensive, that's still just 2% more than the customer has to pay. So in that context, it doesn't look too big, and 100 gigawatt of solar power produces equivalent of say 20 gigawatt of thermal power, and that's not that big a deal in terms of overall energy consumption in the country. So just, I mean, you can look at both these perspectives, but yes, there will always be this question that will these power distribution companies at the state level buy all this power which is coming through. Another big risk on a macro level is the grid's ability to take so much solar. So there is solar, and there will also be wind and other intermittent sources of power, which means that, for example, Germany today has say 5-6% of its energy coming from solar in energy terms, not in installed capacity terms. And if India does 10% of its energy coming from solar, that's a huge deal. I mean, for the grid to be able to operate without failures or without issues is again something that can be a question. Whether or not this will lead to a curtailment from projects is now we move into the project kind of risks in the future. So curtailment of power in the future. Obviously, today we don't see curtailment for solar projects. At least there has been some curtailment for wind in Tamil Nadu, which is one of the South Indian states. But going forward, will there be curtailment issues for the project level? For projects which are outside of solar parks, will developers be able to procure land? If they do procure land, will they get the right of way? Because land is a big issue in India, and will they get the right of way to connect it to the local feeder? So I think these are some of the key issues which need to be considered while making the bids and investing into project level into projects and building portfolios into India.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jasmeet, for presenting some of those. Thanks again, also Satya, for your insightful comments and your presentation. I think this gave a pretty good introduction and overview into some of into the current state of the Indian market. I think it's definitely, as I mentioned, a market that SolarPlaza has been watching for quite some years, and I don't think we've ever been as optimistic as we are. I think 2015 we're really starting to see the market kicking off, and like you said, I think there are, like both of you said, there are are still challenges that need to be addressed. And I think actually, so bringing it back to our delegation, our trade mission that we'll be organizing in October, we definitely hope to be able to bring the opinions of foreign and local investors, project developers, and be able to engage in dialogue with MNRE, with SECI, NTPC, all the public-owned institutions. Again, if you're interested in learning more about the trade mission, please feel free to follow the link on the slides, or feel free to contact me personally. Again, Jasmeet and Satya, thank you very much. I very much look forward to hearing more, delving into this in October, when I'm sure we'll see a lot more progress in the market. Also, for all of you, please feel free to follow both Jasmeet and Satya, as well as SolarPlaza. We regularly release reports and different resources and information about the market. So please feel free, if you're interested in learning more updates and subscribing to our newsletters and staying in touch. A lot of questions were asked that we weren't unfortunately able to answer during this time of the webinar. We've already gone 15 minutes over schedule. However, all these questions have been recorded, and we will forward these questions also to the speakers that you asked, and also just feel free to continue sending questions and moving forward. Again, thank you very much, Satya and Jasmeet. I look forward to seeing you both in October, and yes, until then, thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.